Hi, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the changes in the new Photoshop CC 2015 update, specifically stacked layer styles. Now, this is an incredible new feature that a lot of people have been waiting a long time for, and let's get to showing you exactly what it can do here. With this first layer, my circle selected, I'm going to go to my layer style panel here. First thing you're going to notice is that a few of the options here have a little symbol, a plus mark next to it. Stroke, inner shadow, color overlay, gradient overlay, and drop shadow. Those specific layer styles can have up to 10 new instances each in any one particular layer that you're playing with. Like, let's see here. Say we wanted to give the circle the style of stroke. As usual, you would adjust and play with it like any other layer style. We're just going to increase the size here a little bit. Everything leaving the same. Now, we want to get a second instance of it. Just click the little plus mark, and you've got your second stroke effect here, which is an exact copy of the one just above it. We'll change the color to a green so it's easily visible, and changing the information on that, you'll see now that you have a double stroke on your layer. I can go up to 10 times on this. And with the third, I'm going to choose outside. Change its color to red and adjust it as you see fit. And this is something that in the past you would have to make 3 separate layers, stroke each one individually, and then bring them all together. Now it can be done in one layer, and as I said, you could do that up to 10 times. One other thing that you will notice here is there's an option called overprint. In the past, if you wanted to make a particular stroke style less visible, you would turn down its opacity, and it would leave you seeing the layer underneath. Sometimes you don't want that. Now with this option of overprint, once you click that, all of the stroke layers now have the option of overprint. Changing one changes all. And if I were to turn down the opacity on the green stroke, instead of seeing the background layer underneath, it's going to show you the layer itself. And in this layer, we're going to play with the drop shadow here. Okay, I've selected drop shadow, and I'll move that to a location over here. And I want an instance, and I want a second instance of drop shadow, so I'll click the little plus symbol. I've got my second drop shadow right underneath the first, and I move that anywhere I need it to be. You will notice that the first drop shadow moves along with your second. Its distance will stay the same, but the angle changes because you've had global light selected with the first, and it's automatically copied into the second. So the global light will remain the same for both instances of your shadow. If you don't wish to do this, you can always turn off use global light and then move the second instance anywhere you need. And you can do this up to 10 times. I could also want to add an inner shadow to this layer, and it will do the same thing. I'm going to create the shadow over here. The global light for the inner shadow is going to affect the angle of this drop shadow because of the global light. I'll uncheck that, and then it moves freely of the first. I'll create another instance of inner shadow. Notice that the use global light is unchecked, but for fun's sake, I'll turn that on and move my inner shadow where I want it to be, also moving the first drop shadow. To avoid the confusion of multiple shadows and everything moving on its own, you might want to uncheck global light if you feel that you're going to have many multiple instances of shadows and you don't want them all moving around on their own. If you feel you need them to be consistent in their angle, please do so and leave global light checked on. And for this next object here, we're going to play with the gradient overlay. You're going to find many of its options the same as the color overlay. When it comes to the instances and stacking of the instances, I'll show you what I mean here. On this first instance of the gradient overlay, I'm going to choose a very simple gradient, and then create an instance of it. The second one here is an exact copy of the first. I will change the actual gradient to, say, that one. Now you're not seeing any change. What you need to do is go to the first and change its blend mode so that you can see its effect on what is underneath. One of the other great aspects of these stacked layer styles is the hierarchy. If I wanted to move this particular overlay here underneath this one, I would have it selected and click the down facing arrow. That moves it down by one. Now the one over it, I would then have to change its blend mode to something to affect what's underneath. Now one of the disadvantages I see here is that you can have many instances of these different layer styles. There's no easy way to tell the difference between them. They're an exact copy, the names remain the same. I'm hoping that in a future update, they might add the ability to add a number or a letter to the copies of the instances, so that we'll see gradient overlay and then gradient overlay copy or B or 2, whatever it means, so that it just will be easier to tell the difference between the many different instances a user might have. And on this text layer, I'm going to show you one of the other, what might be considered an oversight or a disadvantage. Now I'm on an entirely new layer. I want to create a new layer style for this text. What you're going to notice is everything that you've worked on before is now all part of this new layer. It's all potentially part of the new layer. I have the multiple strokes, 2 inner shadows, 2 gradient overlays, and 2 drop shadows. If I wanted to clear those out, click on the little FX symbol and select Reset to Default List. But what you'll notice is it reset the default list, but the changes to the individual layer styles will remain from our earlier usage. So the drop shadow is going to have itself with its distance at 78 and its angle at 66, use global light being checked. It's holding on to the specifics that we entered before. If we don't want that, we'll have to go into each layer style that we have changed and click Reset to Default. And then uncheck the items we don't want to use. Or if you don't need to care about that, just play with your new options. Say we want to add a bevel and emboss. With those changes made, we have the option of deleting the hidden effects. Anything that we've decided not to use is removed from the list of options here. It helps clean up the clutter. So if you don't want to uncheck and reset to default everything that's been changed before, you just simply decide what you're going to use, change it as necessary, and then delete hidden effects to get rid of the rest. If you need to see everything, up top, show all effects. So what we've noticed is that the specific layer styles and the information that you put into it hangs on to itself between layers. This might be an oversight by the developers. This might be intended. I'm not really sure. I was hoping that it might be something that they could fix in the near future. You will also notice between sessions of Photoshop, as long as you have not closed Photoshop down and you want to create a new file, you'll notice that if you're going to play with the layer styles again, it's hanging on to the same information between projects as well. This new file, new layer, has the same information for the bevel and emboss that I entered in my other file. Might be an oversight, might be something somebody has decided was useful. I was hoping that they would be able to clear themselves out, at least between projects. And basically, this is the brief introduction and discussion of the new stack layer styles in Photoshop CC 2015. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And please enjoy creating.